It, he's our kind of senator, and we're his kind of Democrats. Bernie Sanders, the senator from Vermont.
Of hell, but I won't back down.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Let me begin by telling you there are more people in this room, I think, than in the state of Vermont. So it's a lot of people. Let me begin by thanking you very much for inviting me to be with you as an independent to the California Democratic Convention. I very much appreciate your invitation and to congratulate you, among other things, for your great victories last November. Interestingly, at a time when the whole country swung to the right, California did not, and Vermont did not, and I think there's a lesson to be learned there. I also want to thank you very much for sending back to the United States Senate one of the great senators that we have, the chair of the Environmental Committee, my committee, Barbara Boxer. Thank you very much for doing that. Now, these are serious times. And what is going to be happening in Washington in the next weeks and months will, in many ways, determine the future of this country for decades. So I wanted to be honest with you, and I wanted to be straightforward with you and talk in a serious manner about what is going on in our country. And the main point that I want to make to you this afternoon is that we are engaged right now in an unprecedented degree of class warfare, and the wrong class is winning. And the challenge that we have from California to Vermont is to rally the American people to stand up, to fight back, and to make sure that we end what is going on right now, and that is the disappearance of the middle class. We're going to turn that around. Now, I know that there are a lot of my colleagues and folks on the TV who will tell you with some truth that we are making progress in terms of growing the economy and undoing some of the damage from the Bush administration. But, and this is an important point that has to be made, nobody should minimize, not for 1 second, the extraordinary amount of pain and economic suffering that is existing in this country. I have had a number of town meetings in Vermont, and what the theme is, are we still in a recession? And people say very loudly and clearly that we are. Now, let me just touch on some of what's going on in this country that we just don't discuss enough. When you pick up the newspaper, they tell you that official unemployment is 8.9%. Do you know what real unemployment is if you figure in people who have given up looking for work, if you figure in people who want to work full-time, who are working part-time? When you add it all together, what you're looking at is unemployment over 15%. That's unacceptable. Further, what we have got to recognize is that unemployment itself, whether it's 9% or 15%, doesn't tell half the story, because there are tens of millions of working people out there working 40, 50, 60 hours a week and still not earning enough money to take care of their families. Let us be clear. Most of the new jobs being created today are low-wage jobs, and if unemployed workers are lucky enough to find a new job, the likelihood is that that job will pay significantly less than the job he or she lost. So when we talk about the economy, we're talking not just about creating jobs, we're talking about jobs that a family can live on. In the last 10 years, while median family income has declined by some $2,500, do you know why people are angry? Because they are working longer hours for lower wages, and they're worried that their kids are going to be even worse off than they are. People have a right to be angry, and we've got to channel that anger into a progressive agenda. And what I have to tell you, and it's important to understand this, is the economic crisis did not just begin 3 years ago when the crooks on Wall Street drove us into a recession. This problem has been going on for decades. Today, a two-income family, and most middle-class families, if they're lucky enough to have jobs, are two-income families. A two-income family today has less disposable income than a one-income family had 30 years ago. That is moving in the wrong direction. In the midst of all of this, poverty is increasing, and we have, to our everlasting shame, by far the highest rate of childhood poverty of any major country on earth. Not coincidentally, we also have more people in jail than any other country on earth. And if anyone thinks there is not a correlation between high childhood poverty, young people dropping out of school, doing drugs, doing self-destructive activity, and ending up in jail, I think you're wrong. And some of us have that wild and radical idea that maybe it is a better idea to invest in our kids than building more jails. Today, college education is becoming unaffordable. Hundreds of thousands of bright young people can no longer afford to go to college. Others are graduating $25,000, $50,000 in debt and are unable to do the careers that they want. Today, we are falling behind many other countries in terms of the percentage of our people who are graduating college, and our students on international exams are not doing well. Now, that is the reality facing the middle class and working families of our country. And we can talk about that for a whole long time, and it is important that we do talk about it. But there is another economic reality out there that we spend far too little time discussing. It's something that the Republicans don't talk about at all, and I have to tell you very frankly that my Democratic colleagues in Washington also don't talk about as much as they should. And that is that while the middle class of this country is disappearing, while poverty in this country is increasing, the people on top have never had it so good, and the gap between the very, very rich and everybody else is growing wider. It is time not only that we discussed this issue, that we analyzed this issue, it is time that we did something about this issue. Today, the top 1% of Americans earn about 22% of all income in this country, which is more than the bottom 50%. Top 1%, bottom 50%. During the 25-year period from 1980 to 2005, 80% of all new income created in America went to the top 1%. While millions of American workers are seeing no wage increase this year, and many of them, after they pay their health care, are seeing a decline in their wages, the crooks on Wall Street who helped cause this recession are now earning larger compensation packages than they did before the bailout. On top of all of that, while the richest people become richer, they have received hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars in tax breaks. And the reality is, and Warren Buffett and others often remind us of this, that if you are one of the wealthiest people in this country, your effective, i.e. your real tax rate, is lower than that of a teacher, a cop, or a fireman. So what you see is the wealthiest people becoming wealthier. They receive huge tax breaks. Their effective tax rates go down. That's income. I want to say a word about wealth, because distribution of wealth is even worse than the income gap. And I want you to hear this closely. Today in America, the top 400 individuals, 400 people, own more wealth than the bottom 1/2 of America, 150 million Americans. 400 people here and 150 million there. These are statistics, not from a democracy, but from an oligarchy, and we have got to change that. Now, I know that not a lot of people talk about these issues. Just something that politicians, for a variety of reasons, don't talk about. It's something that the corporate media doesn't talk about, but it's something that we have got to talk about. Now, given that reality, the obvious question arises, and that is, where do we go from here? How do we address these horrendous realities, and what should be, if I may be allowed to ask, what should be the political posture of the Democratic Party? And here is my answer. The Republican Party is now and has always been the party of big money. The Ryan Republican budget, recently passed in the House, is the most radical and dangerous piece of legislation that I have ever seen in my life. What that legislation would do, I want you all to appreciate this, what that legislation would do is transfer trillions of dollars from a declining middle class and give it to the wealthiest people in this country who are already doing phenomenally well. Huge tax breaks for the rich, savage cuts for working families. That is what the Republican Party today is all about. And that's the reality. That's the reality. You can talk about a million things, but that is where it's at. They are planning, if they get their way, to cut Medicaid by hundreds of billions of dollars. And you tell me, if you are a low-income person or a low-income child and you're thrown off of Medicaid and you get sick, what happens to you? Today in America, to our everlasting shame, 45,000 Americans are going to die this year because they don't get to a doctor when they should. If you slash Medicaid, as the Republicans want, there is no question, and we should be clear about this, that many more people will die. And the Ryan plan is another brilliant idea. They want to convert Medicare into a voucher program. So here's the story. You're 55 now, and in 10 years, you're 65, and you get your Medicare under their plan, and lucky you, you're going to get an $8,000 voucher to give to a private insurance company. Now, what kind of plan do you buy with $8,000 if you are dealing with cancer or another illness? How many days are you going to be able to spend in the hospital? So what, in fact, you are talking about now are death panels. That is what we're talking about. But having said that, and what I will say, let me be very clear about this, the Republicans have been straightforward and upfront about what they stand for, and now it is time for the Democrats to be straightforward about what they stand for. And it seems to me, and I know I will probably offend some people here or some people in the back room there or something, but I think, to say the least, my colleagues, my Democratic colleagues, and I am in the Democratic caucus, have not been straightforward. And the issue comes back to an old Woody Guthrie song, "Which side are you on?" And I think, and I hope, that the Democratic Party will make it clear that they are on the side of working families, the middle class, and are prepared to stand up boldly against corporate America and the billionaires who are waging class warfare today. I am raising this issue with you because, to be very frank, we need your help. Those of us who are trying to uphold the progressive banner and progressive ideals in Washington need grassroots support from California to Maine. We need to tell the wavering Democrats to stand tall, to get outside of that inside the Beltway mentality, to listen to the people. Now, let me just touch on a few of the issues that I and my colleagues will be dealing with as soon as we get back to Washington on Monday. Let me say a word about Social Security. When you turn on the TV tonight, there are going to be pundits and politicians telling you that Social Security is going broke, that it's bankrupt, and I don't want you to believe that for 1 second. Social Security, for the last 75 years, has paid out every nickel owed to every eligible American in good times and in bad. An incredible record. Social Security has lowered the poverty rate of seniors from 50% to 10%. Social Security today, despite all of the misinformation out there, has a $2.6 trillion surplus, can pay out every benefit owed to every eligible American for the next 26 years. And Social Security, because it is funded by the payroll tax, has not added 1 penny to the deficit. Now, what I have to tell you is the Republicans are pretty clear. They want to cut benefits, they want to raise the retirement age, and ultimately they want to privatize Social Security. That's clear. But this is what I have to say. Some of our Democratic colleagues have not been as strong as they should be. And when you hear Democrats saying everything is on the table, that is a code word for cuts in Social Security. Don't let them do it. Today, some 50 million Americans lack health insurance and many more are underinsured. Meanwhile, as a nation, we spend almost twice as much per person on health care as does any other nation, and all of the major industrialized nations have national health care programs which guarantee health care to all of their people. Now, I voted for the health care reform bill because I thought it was an important step forward for a number of reasons, but I have never believed that it was enough. Today, right now, the Vermont State Legislature and our governor are working hard to pass a Medicare for All single-payer program. And in my view, if we are serious about universal health care and guaranteeing health care to all of our people, single payer is the only way we do it. So I ask you today, because we're going to need the help of the Congress to craft legislation to give Vermont the necessary waivers, help us let Vermont lead the nation in a new direction. Every day in my office, I get telephone calls about the soaring price of gasoline. That's what I hear. I live in a rural state. People travel 100 miles often to go to work and come back. Their wages are going down. They can't afford $4 or $5 gallon of gas. It is time for the Democrats and the president to say enough is enough. The financial reform bill that we passed last year gave the Commodities Future Trading Commission the mandate to end Wall Street speculation in oil futures. We don't need Wall Street to drive up the price of oil. Enough is enough. I want to say a word on another issue that we don't talk enough about, and that is the trade issue. Almost every working person, regardless of whether they are a Democrat, a Republican, or an independent, understands that our current trade policies have failed. In the last 10 years, we have lost 50,000 factories in this country and millions of good-paying manufacturing jobs. Tonight, when you turn on the TV, you're going to see all of the advertising. Buy this, buy that, buy this. It is high time that these corporations who want us to buy their products start building those products and manufacturing those products here in the United States. When I go back to Washington in a few days, the debate will continue on deficit reduction, the 2012 budget, and how we deal with our $14 trillion national debt. Now, as we engage in that discussion, let us never, ever forget how we ran up that debt. All of you remember that when President Clinton left office, he gave a huge budget surplus to President Bush. But 2 wars later, unpaid for, huge tax breaks for the rich, unpaid for, a Medicare Part D prescription drug program written by the insurance companies, unpaid for, and a Wall Street bailout, unpaid for, put us where we are today. And given that reality, the reality of how we got to where we are today in terms of the deficit, it is morally imperative that we not balance the budget on the backs of the sick, the elderly, the children, the poor, and the most vulnerable people in our society. If we are serious about deficit reduction, we don't pass a budget which not only slashes programs from people who are already hurting, but in the process lays off hundreds and hundreds of thousands of workers. That makes no sense at all. So let me be very clear. If we are serious about moving toward deficit reductions, there are fair and responsible ways to do it, and let me mention just a few. For a start, we're going to end Bush's tax breaks for the very wealthy. And we are going to ask the wealthiest people in this country who have made out like bandits for years to start paying their fair share of taxes. We are going to end the long strings of loopholes which enable large and profitable corporations to make billions in profits and pay nothing in taxes. A couple of weeks ago, my office released a list of the major 10 tax avoiders: General Electric, the Bank of America, Chevron, on it goes. And in some cases, not only did these huge corporations not pay anything in federal taxes, they actually got a rebate from the IRS. We're going to end that. And if we are serious about deficit reduction, and if we think it's not a good idea to throw children off of the S-chip program or cut Medicaid for the sick, we're going to end the tax havens that exist in the Cayman Islands and Bermuda, where we are losing $100 billion a year in tax revenue. Lastly, it is clear to me that we must take a hard look at military spending, which has tripled. Which has tripled. Military spending, including the wars, has tripled since 1997. Now, in my view, there are a number of reasons why we must bring the troops home from Iraq and Afghanistan as soon as we possibly can, and deficit reduction is one of them. So, my friends, that is where we are now. We are in a pivotal moment in American history. I believe that if we rally the American people around the cause of justice, we're going to win this fight. But to do it, we're going to have to take on some very powerful forces in Washington and all over this country. Now, what they have on their side is money, but we have something more important. We have the people. And I believe, from the bottom of my heart, that if we stand together, are crystal clear on the issues, are prepared to take on the big money interests and all that they are doing to this country, and if we explain carefully what we're doing to the American people, we are going to win that struggle. And it is vitally important, not only for ourselves, but for our kids and our grandchildren, that we do just that. So I look forward to working with you in the months and years ahead. Thank you all very much for what you are doing.